One of the most Googled questions in the world is, why does God allow suffering? That's a tough one, but if you stick around, I'll do my best to answer it from the Bible. For the next few Recharge devotionals, I'm starting a series called Google Gospel, where I try to answer some of the most common questions about God and faith. I was recently talking to a friend who shared with me that they'd been going through a tough time. They'd applied to a job that they really wanted, got a first, second, and third round interview, and in the end, they didn't get the position. And the friend shared with me that they were absolutely devastated. I mean, they couldn't believe that after all of that, they didn't get the position that they were just absolutely sure was God's will for their life. I don't know about you, but I've been in a similar position where I thought something was going to work out. I thought it was going to go my way. And in the end, it all seemed to fall apart. You see, the disappointments and letdowns of life can be at times accurately described as suffering. And I'm only talking about things like not getting a job or missing out on specific opportunities. Someone knows all too well that life can present situations and circumstances that are difficult beyond words, like childhood cancer, mass shootings, car accidents, or any of the other insane things that are happening right now. When those things happen, the very real question that must surface inside of us, the very human question, is why? Why would God allow me, you, us to experience this? Why do we have to go through these things? Well, the Bible gives us some answers. The Bible teaches us that on the one hand, this is the nature of living in a world blighted by sin. The world is a rough place and bad things happen to good people. And it's usually at the hands of other people. You see, the radical nature of creation is that the Bible tells us that humans were made in the image of God. You see, this means that we have the freedom to choose, to make decisions. And that's a powerful, beautiful, but risky reality, especially when that reality is tainted by sin. As a matter of fact, the Bible tells us that once sin entered into the world, death, pain, and suffering entered into the world with it. But the Bible also tells us that God is not some passive observer as pain and suffering proliferate throughout the world. As a matter of fact, the Bible tells us that God is actively engaging. He is actively intervening in this world. I believe that the Bible teaches us that God is taking at least 3 steps to rectify the ugliness and the suffering that we are experiencing today. The first step is divine intervention. The Bible tells us that the divine, that God is actively intervening in our reality. As a matter of fact, in Jeremiah 29 and verse 11, the Bible tells us the thoughts of God. He says, I know the thoughts that I have towards you. I know the plans that I have towards you. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a future and to give you a hope. As a matter of fact, in Romans 8 and verse 28, the Bible tells us that all things are working together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. What these verses help us to understand is that God is actively engaged in our situation, that he is in the business of giving us beauty for our ashes, that he recognizes that in a sinful world, things are happening at all times, but he is adjusting and intervening to make sure that all things work together for good. That's thing number 1 that God is doing. But the second step that God is taking is human intervention. Now, if you were to read the Gospels, the stories of Jesus in the New Testament, you would see that Jesus was constantly working to undo suffering. He was helping the lame to walk. He was restoring sight to the blind. He was setting people free from demons and oppression. He was respecting women and holding leaders accountable. And so it's interesting that before he left this earth, he said this in John chapter 14, truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these. Did you catch that? Jesus basically says that one of the solutions to undoing the ugliness, to rectifying the hurt and the pain and the suffering of this earth is that I am going to raise up a group of people who will do the things that I've done, but they will also do greater things than these. Step number one of what God is doing to rectify the suffering in this world is a divine intervention. But step number two is human intervention. Jesus commands, he calls for us as his followers to do the things that he did and even greater things than he did. The third step of what God is doing to rectify the ugliness and the suffering in this world is powerful, and it gets me excited. It's found in Revelation chapter 21, and I believe that the best way to describe it is an eternal intervention. Starting in verse 1 of Revelation 21, the Bible is describing the very end of time. Jesus has come back and he is going to take us home, and this is the home that he is going to take us to. It says this: "Now I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no more sea. Then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, 'Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people. Yes, God himself will be with them and be their God, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, no more sorrow, nor crying. There will be no more pain, for the former things have passed away.'" You see, the beautiful thing about our God is that he has come up with an eternal intervention, an eternal solution to suffering. It is a solution that rescues us from the vicious cycles of suffering in our world. But until that day, remember that God is intervening on your behalf. And remember that God invites us to intervene on behalf of those around us. God bless. Hey, that's all we have for you this week. We pray that you were blessed. If you were, would you consider sharing this video? Yeah, click that like on YouTube, click like or love on Facebook or wherever you're finding this, double tap it. But also send it to a friend, send it to someone who you think could be encouraged by this message. We also want to invite you to give. You can head over to cpcsda.org/give. There you can return a tithe, but you can also give an offering to support this Recharge ministry. We are so thankful for everyone, all of you who have been so faithful in your giving. Your giving goes so far, so thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Some of you all noticed that we didn't have Recharge last week. This is a bi-weekly program, but we are rolling something else out pretty soon, so make sure you subscribe or follow our page to keep up with what we are doing. I'm very excited about it, and I know you'll love it. Until then, God bless you, and happy Sabbath.